we were planning on launching this in person back in April. Of course, we had to cancel that event. But we're happy now to meet you all online, present the playbook, but also really start a conversation with you guys, how we can strengthen the ties between the Netherlands and Seattle. As some of the Dutch people in this meeting will be aware of, Seattle is not very known in the Netherlands, while we see a lot of resemblances between the Netherlands and Seattle and Washington State. So after a first plenary section introducing the playbook, we would really hope to dive with you into how can we strengthen that relationship between the Netherlands and Seattle. But let's not wait any longer. I would like to start with introducing the Consul General of the Netherlands, Mr. Gerbert Kunst, who will tell us a bit more about this playbook. Herbert.
Well, thank you so much, Sietse. Like you said, of course, we would love to be really in Seattle, just like to be there, to meet all of you and to introduce our playbook. It was planned for April. We were looking forward to having a pop-up consulate in Seattle, and I see Leo van Dorp is joining us, our honorary consul in Seattle. He has put a lot of effort in preparing this exercise, but in the end, it didn't work out. We all know that due to COVID, of course, the world has changed, and well, this is the new reality. We are all Zoom friends now. It would have been better to have a beer or. Goedemorgen, Leo. It would have been better, of course, to see each other in person, but this is maybe the next best. So I'm pretty pleased that we have this opportunity. Last week or a week ago, we had a virtual mission, which was quite a large group. And this is more for us a sort of virtual round table. We tried to give you the sort of more cozy feeling with well, I would say an intimate group. And we would love, of course, to learn more about Seattle. For us, the consulate, we always sort of try to explore the opportunities at the West Coast in general. Of course, we're based in San Francisco, and you would argue, of course, you prefer California. But I think we know that for some entrepreneurs, there are many more chances in other hubs, like, for example, Seattle. So I'm very pleased that after a few visits, helped by Leo, we were there to build a bit of an ecosystem in Seattle. And we met with many friends and entrepreneurs, and they all missed a bit the Dutch entrepreneurs coming over to Seattle. I think even in June 2017, we had the opportunity for His Royal Highness Prince Constantine to visit Seattle and to explore, well, the opportunities there. I'm pretty sure we'll touch upon that later as well. And I think it's just an honor to have, well, 3 years later, this playbook available for the entrepreneurs and all of you there to give guidance from your expertise to set next steps in Seattle. For me, Seattle, well, it's a great place. It feels sometimes a bit like the Netherlands, perhaps because of the rain sometimes, Leo, I'm not sure. But a part of that, it has still this American entrepreneurial spirit. It has the Silicon Valley innovation, I feel, but then this European easy-go vibe. It's a bit more relaxed, I might say, but you, of course, know much better when you're living in Seattle. Maybe even a bit rebellious, but maybe that's just because of the music coming out of Seattle. In the end, I feel, and I've learned that, Arean, you've, I think, lived in both places. At least you have lots of experience as well in the Valley. Sometimes it's a bit cheaper. People are maybe a bit more relaxed, but you'll tell us more about that as well. And your story is in our playbook, actually. So just to say a few words on this playbook. I think we started the first playbook with the help of Maaike from Business Model Inc. in Valley. And we felt like it's the best tool for entrepreneurs to set next steps because it gives you the best inside tips. I feel a bit like the Lonely Planet for entrepreneurs coming over to the West Coast. And of course, after the first one, you feel like maybe we should sort of continue our success. And then we sort of created the playbook for Los Angeles. And then, of course, all of you would say, like, of course, Washington State is missing. And we felt the same. So we set the step to create a Seattle playbook. And I think the good thing for the playbook is that it's just like not the government telling you what to do or what you shouldn't do. It's much more, it's the entrepreneurs living, working in Seattle to say, like, this is how you will be successful. This is what you need to do to prepare. Because in the end, I think it's all about preparation as well. It's not like you just go to Seattle and you have your business the next day, but you need to be prepared. And I think today's webinar will help the Dutch entrepreneurs who are looking forward to opportunities in Seattle a bit more because we have great panelists. We have Maaike Doyer, who will talk with Arean van Veelen, just mentioned, and Martijn from Tilburg. And we have our startup liaison, Michael Dooijes, who is responsible for the startup, I would say, help here in the US. and he will talk to with the city of Seattle as well, with Anisa, and I'm pretty sure this will be very helpful for all of you. So we're building bridges today, and again, thank you so much for joining. I would love to hear more about what you, the Dutch businesses, need to be convinced to go to Seattle, and of course, we'd love to get the best tips, maybe not even mentioned in the playbook. But I think I've said enough on this webinar. Just wanted to, of course, officially launch Playbook. I would have loved to hand over the first real Playbook to all of you in person. It's not possible. Well, the next best thing is, a part of showing it, is to start a video promoting this Playbook. Dietze, the floor is yours.
No, let's start playing in Seattle. That's what this is all about. Before we go to the first panel, where we dive a bit into what the playbook is all about, I would like to do a brief poll to see who's with us today. Milena, maybe you can show the poll. Yeah. Where do we all live? I'm curious as well. All right, that seems to be a good mix of people here. 42% comes from Seattle/Washington State, 32% elsewhere in the US, and 26% from the Netherlands.
All right, so everyone got up early this morning, actually. Oh, there we go. Now we can see the results. Thank you. I was just super curious.
Yeah, of course. No, I thought that you guys could see it, but I had to click the button. Thank you.
Needs to wake up, which is the majority I see. But I think that's one of the things. If you live here on this side of the world, your day always starts early, right? Especially if you still work together with the Netherlands. That's one of those things. But indeed, the Seattle Playbook, we're super excited. It got launched. And as was said by Gerbert and Dietze, it's really for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. That's the whole objective of this. So today we have two entrepreneurs with us here, Arean van Veelen and Martijn from Tilburg. And their interview is in the playbook, so we're not going to reveal everything, but we want to give you a quick sneak preview, so to say, about who they are and what brought them to Seattle and why they love it so much. Martijn, could you give a short intro about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Martijn. I have been in Seattle maybe for, I think, 23 years. I came here for Microsoft, kind of like right out of school, and worked at Microsoft for 10 years. And then I've been part of two kind of like startups, or one as kind of like the executive founding team, which was a professional services company called Artifact here in Seattle. And the second one is a company that I started, which was 10,000 Feet, a software company, SaaS. That is, or was a bootstrapped company, which we grew to thousands of customers. And it got acquired last year in 2019 by Smartsheet. So that's a bit about me.
Yeah, an excited adventure already from Martijn. Arean.
Okay, yeah, I'm Arean. I've been in Seattle since 2004. Been in the United States about now, for this year, half my life. Going back to '97, came to study to the US. Although I'll be lying, I didn't really pick the study. I was actually more curious to go and explore the US and use the study as an excuse to get here. Loved it. Got my first job in Silicon Valley, lived there about 6 years. Then actually got a job at a startup in Seattle, was working remotely for a little bit. That didn't work so well at that time. a little easier these days. So I decided to move to Seattle. Had seen Seattle a few times because of a previous job. I was consulting at Boeing. I was a known company, of course, as well as Packard. The Dutch people might know DAF as a car and truck manufacturer, and Packard owns his company. It was my first experience here. Loved it. So my move was actually fairly straightforward for me. Joined another startup after that. Pretty much been in startups ever since, to the point where I'd learned a lot, seen a lot, and I felt like I want to do it myself. And at that point, joined my coworker at the previous company, Nick Huzar, and we together started OfferUp, which is, compared to Holland, think about Marktplaats. It's a marketplace for used items, and we've been growing that since late 2010. And as of 2018, I stepped out of the day-to-day and focus now my time on helping startups in Seattle, just because it's a great city, it's a great community, and honestly, it's payback time, because I did, obviously gain a lot in the early years when starting OfferUp from this community as well. So that's about me.
Yeah, and that's what I can hear with both of you, right? It's sort of the combination here in Seattle with those large companies that are out here talking about Boeing, talking about Microsoft, all these giants, and at the same time that creates also this whole startup climate as entrepreneurs that you can be part of. I don't know, Martijn, was there? Of course, you went there for Microsoft, but you've been living there 20 years now. Any reason? Why do you stay? Why do you not explore other parts of the United States?
I don't know. It never really became an issue. I just found interesting things to do, kind of like one after the other. And before you know it, you've been here for that long. The plan was 4 years originally, so that didn't work out that well.
And they hooked you. They didn't want to let you go. And is there something, Martijn, if you look back, so what did you accomplish in Seattle that you probably would not have accomplished in the Netherlands? That would have been much harder to do in the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think when I started 10,000 feet, I think one of the things here is just the talent pool that's available, and I think for us, we found a lot of talented people that came from either Microsoft or Amazon, and those are people you think you can't compete with those kind of companies, but you can. And especially because there's a lot of people that might have worked there for 10, 15 years. They're kind of looking for a different type of culture or different benefits. And we found we could create quite an attractive environment for those kind of people. So that's, I think, is unique in Seattle, in that all those companies are there. The second part is what kind of like our acquisition that happened more recently. I don't think if we had been in the Netherlands, this wouldn't have happened, or wouldn't have played out as it did play out. In that Smartsheet is a local company, and when we were talking, they were also talking to another company in Europe. I mean, there were probably many factors in why they decided to acquire us, but I think us being local was kind of like an important aspect as well. And I think that's an interesting aspect to keep in mind, why it might be a good idea to be here or closer to kind of like companies that might be buyers.
Part of that whole ecosystem that you have out there. And what is that for you, Arean? If you think back, like, yeah, I've been in Seattle now for so long, 16 years already. What have you accomplished here in Seattle that you probably could not have accomplished in the Netherlands?
I guess I would split it in two. There's a part of being in the United States, and then there's a part of being in Seattle. My experience with, again, I've been here now for a while, but I could tell you when I left Holland, I remember the birthday parties and the student parties, and everybody talking about like this great big job they had at these big companies. And if you said anything about starting your own company, they looked at you like, did you not study? Did you not do? It was like, it was not automatically considered an amazing opportunity. When I got here, I was just surprised about how many people just tried their own companies, and even if they failed, just kept trying. And there wasn't even one moment where we would say like, well, you failed, so why try again? I think there's an attitude here of just, you have an idea, you want to pursue it, and you do it. And if you fail, also be it, try something else. I have to say that, again, I've been here for 5 years now. So things have changed in Holland. I'm connected to startups there and connected there, but still, I do think that's one of the big things is that it's not just that you are motivated, that you want to do something, it's that the community around you is supportive in the culture, in the community, things like that is key. Seattle versus Silicon Valley, where I used to live. I think Silicon Valley, it's some practical things. Obviously, Silicon Valley, I think, will still beat all the other statistics. But Silicon Valley has also gotten very expensive. It attracts a lot of great talent to the point it's just full. It's getting, the cost of living is not, I think Seattle's about 40% cheaper. The people there can hop jobs every day, right? There's so many companies, so many opportunities, to the point that employee loyalty is a problem. And I know that because, early on for us to get money, unfortunately, Seattle was not ready at that point, VC-wise, a lot better today. We got a lot of money from these VCs in Silicon Valley, and I got to meet all these portfolio companies. We were always the outsider. There was a meeting with portfolio companies. We were the guys from Seattle, right? But you hear the problems. We also were always considered the most efficient startup in the portfolio because we ran at half the cost. So we could do a lot more with that money we got from these VCs. So again, cost of living compared to Silicon Valley for sure. Employee loyalty is another one. Also, if you're in, and kind of talking about exit that Martijn talked about as well, if you do anything that links to the cloud, you need to be in the cloud city. It is Seattle. I joke about it's always cloudy here, but we also are the key, center of excellence when it comes to cloud computing. Everyone is here. Even Google moved their cloud computing team over here. So if you're in that space, or if you're in enterprise space, Microsoft, and a lot of spin-offs out of Microsoft, this is a good place to bring your company if you're thinking about either an exit or a merger or partnerships. This is a good place for that.
Go to Seattle. That's a good one. And as a final question, Ariane, what's your tip for everyone who's considering coming over to Seattle? Every entrepreneur.
Yeah, so many. I think I would always say, like, no matter where you go, if you make that big step, make sure you're connected before you arrive here. You would save yourself so much time. Seattle's very approachable. It's laid back compared to other places. There's a bit of a Seattle freeze. People joke about that, but as Northern Europeans, we probably it's the same. It takes a little bit of time before you warm up to others. But you can network easily. Connect to us. We can connect you to people. The community here is actually pretty easy to connect to. It doesn't take many steps to be well connected in this town.
That's good. And Martijn, what is your tip for everyone who is considering coming over to Seattle to do business there?
Well, there are a lot of good tips in the playbook already, but I think one of them is don't bring an umbrella, because although it rains a lot, there's this peculiar disdain for umbrellas in Seattle, where if you wear one, you kind of like don't fit in. So if you want to be more like the locals, it's raincoats.
You can do your umbrella in New York, but indeed not in Seattle. I like that. Thank you so much, Arean and Martijn. And for everyone here on the call, do read their interviews indeed in the playbook. I think it gives a lot of insights for everyone who wants to come over to Seattle. Back to you, Sietse.
Thank you, Maaike, Arean, and Martijn. Now let's go to the second panel. Michael Dooyes, the Startup Liaison at the Consul General, will dive more into the Seattle ecosystem. Michael.
Thanks, Sietse. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Doyer. Good morning, good afternoon. For those that are in the Netherlands, I'm the Startup Liaison in the US. Basically, my mission is very simple. Help the promising Dutch startups and scale-ups launch in the US. So we're active in various cities in the US, and obviously Seattle is a very important tech hub. We've invited two great speakers on this panel to talk about the opportunities, but also the challenges for entrepreneurs in Seattle. So I would like to introduce Anisa Khoshbakhtian and Rebecca Lovell. Anisa, can you say a few words about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here, and it's also cool to see everyone's faces. So thanks for being here, and thanks for having me. So to start, to give you a little bit of background about myself, I am not a Seattle native. I'm actually from Southern California. I grew up near Los Angeles, and pretty much most of my career has been in small business or in the startup world, primarily in the Los Angeles area, as well as in the Bay Area in San Francisco, and recently here. And so I have a particularly unique background in the sense that I've seen a lot of different industries. I've worked in a lot of different industries all along the West Coast. Prior to working at the city of Seattle, I was actually in blockchain for a couple of years, and I ran a consulting group, and we were, which is very relevant for blockchain. We were very decentralized. So we had clients all over. I was pretty mobile, and I got to see a lot in the world of emerging technology. And then I transitioned to my current role in the city in December as the technology and media industry advocate. So at the Office of Economic Development. So in short, my position is focused on, I guess, all things technology having to do with economic development, but not from a policy perspective, but mostly from how to support the community, particularly around diversity, and ensuring that the local community is empowered and given the right resources and tools to get the jobs in tech, or if, so that means bringing more diversity to the tech workforce from the local talent, from the local communities, as well as supporting small business owners and startup owners. And again, everything that I do has a diversity lens to it. So I will probably speak more about that as this goes on.
Super, Anisa, many thanks. I think it's a great background also because you have the experience in working in the Bay Area, but also in Los Angeles, and you can compare, which is important because a lot of people will think about Silicon Valley and not so much look at other alternatives. Thanks for that. Rebecca, could you say a few words about yourself?
Great, thanks for having me, and it's good to reconnect with so many familiar faces and see some new ones. So I am actually one of the few Seattle natives that you may meet should you come join us in Seattle. We are a wonderfully international community here, but I grew up here, and the last 15 years of my career have either been running or supporting technology startups right here in Seattle. I built the business of a technology media company called GeekWire here in Seattle, ran a fintech that focused on peer-to-peer student lending in developing countries, ran an angel organization here, so have a lens on the investment community, currently lead an entrepreneur membership organization that supports the growth of tech startups called Create 33. And then like all of you who are entrepreneurs, I have lots of side hustles. I teach entrepreneurship at the University of Washington and the Masters of Business program. I chair a national organization that's based in Washington, D.C. called the Center for American Entrepreneurship, and we focus on policies and programs that support the growth of startups across the country. So I'm delighted to bring a bit of a national lens to the work that I do and serve on a number of nonprofit boards here. I will state my bias right now. I'm quite bullish on the Seattle startup ecosystem. We'll say that we just rose to one of the top 10 cities based on the Startup Genome Report that just came out about a week ago, and look forward to diving into so many of the factors that I think make us a thriving ecosystem and that actually connect us to our friends in the Netherlands. Of course, we've got wonderful ambassadors here in Arean and Martijn, much more where that came from. Look forward to the discussion.
Exactly. Many thanks, Rebecca. And, I really hope that we can connect some great companies to you guys. Anisa, can I start from your perspective, the city of Seattle? Why would you move as a Dutch entrepreneur to Seattle if you want to come to the US? What are the sort of the advantages of coming to Seattle? And are there any special arrangements for startup founders establishing themselves in Seattle?
So I believe that Arean may have mentioned all the points that are of value for people or entrepreneurs coming to Seattle, particularly over the Bay Area. I mean, there's a lot of resources. There's a lot of exceptional talent here, especially having to do with engineering and those more technical, those who are more technical in their fields. You know, also it's cheaper, and that's something that everyone considers. But you're in the backyard of some of the biggest companies. So of course, Amazon and Microsoft. You know, it's kind of weird to speak to all of this during the pandemic when things are clearly shifting. So, and we're, you know, truthfully, I'm unclear on how things are going to turn out, but there's definitely that there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of extraordinary talent. I also think that from a city perspective, we're small compared to some of these big markets. And in the city, we're doing a lot of work to focus on engaging the community. And I mentioned diversity from the city. We are doing a lot of work on empowering the BIPOC youth, so Black, Indigenous, people of color, and making sure that they get the right education so that they can be, they can have access to these opportunities. And we're working with the various companies here to ensure that their diversity recruiting programs are legitimate. So I know that that's a little bit more focused on recruiting, but there's a lot of organizations too that can support in, you know, internship programs and ensuring that these youth of color are being placed in good companies and getting the training that they need. So I think that it's more intimate here, and that can be really enticing. If I was to compare it to the other cities, you know, it was mentioned, San Francisco is huge. And it's, from my experience, there's also a lot of noise there, and there's a lot of hype, and there's also a lot of money there, but that means there's an exceptional amount of competition, but it's really easy to get connected in this city and to be engaged in the community very easily, in the startup community. And I'd say similar is LA. I'd say it's a little bit more intimate than San Francisco, but in my experience, Seattle is definitely more intimate in regards to being able to connect with other entrepreneurs and other groups and organizations that can support what it is that you're up to.
Great. Thanks, Anisa, for that insight. Now, Rebecca, if we go into this a little bit more, Anisa just also mentions the role that the big tech companies play in the Seattle area. Microsoft is there. Obviously, Amazon is there. What's the cross-pollination? What are the opportunities for the startup community, also with these large tech companies that are based in the Seattle area?
Absolutely. And I would underscore everything that the previous panelists have mentioned. But really, when we look at healthy startup ecosystems around the world, they have a number of facets in common. And we can certainly talk about the big companies that are located here. We have an over 100-year history of innovation going back to Boeing. We can be considered the tale of two Bills between Bill Boeing and Bill Gates, starting Boeing and Microsoft here in our backyard. We should also point to the University of Washington, and I'm hoping that those of you entrepreneurs in the Netherlands hear yourself in this story. We have an amazing center of research and development in our anchor of the University of Washington. We're particularly strong in computer science and engineering, as well as life sciences. And so they attract talent from the world over and spin out and commercialize incredible technology. So that's yet another factor. And I know the Netherlands has a very strong R&D center as well. Not only do we have homegrown companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Boeing, but we have over 80 engineering centers. So companies that are headquartered elsewhere, like Facebook and Google, now have significant footprints in Seattle. So we're not just a one company town, which we might have been, Arean and Martijn, when you first came to Seattle, but there's so many places that you can go either to get trained up and leave and start your own startup. They create wealth, they acquire other startups, as Martijn has just seen. So they're a huge part of the ecosystem. We are also, and this might sound familiar to some of you, we are surrounded by natural beauty. We attract adventurers from the world over, and I think that spirit of adventure is one of the underpinnings of the entrepreneurial community. But the other thing too, and I think there's a little bit of judo here, we might be smaller and newer than some of the technology ecosystems, but what you see as a result is that we have to collaborate. Our oldest venture capital firm here is only 25 years old. The biggest fund in town is only $300 million. And so what that means is that investors here are actively seeking opportunities to syndicate and work with investors from around the country. So even if we don't have as much capital as the Valley or New York City, 2/3 of the deals and 3/4 of the dollars that come into Seattle startups are from outside the region. So it can be challenging to raise money here, but it's a real opportunity. And I think that the nation and the world are starting to take notice of the innovation economy that is Seattle. We are the cloud capital of the world. We have all the infrastructure that I think helps drive enterprise-facing startups. I would say the Valley tends to be stronger than we are in the business to consumer space, which also tend to be very competitive, winner take all, binary outcome, and capital intensive. We tend to focus on business to business opportunities and build companies that last. There's something about kind of patience, both from an entrepreneur perspective, as well as an investor's perspective, that might be a little bit culturally different than some of the other startup hubs around the country. I should also say that our commitment to music and the arts really cross-pollinates so many sectors. We're not just the city that invented grunge back in the 90s. We're the city that invented and reinvented the way music is consumed and delivered over CDs and MP3s. We have a significant commitment to the arts. So when you think about all of these assets, we have a thriving gaming economy. So I'm sure many of us recognize the 8-bit graphics from back in the day. We do have a thriving life sciences and global health economy. When you match up the hardware talent from Boeing with the software talent from Microsoft and Amazon, connected devices, I think, are a really exciting emerging area of excellence for Seattle. So there's a lot going on here. And as I think a couple of the speakers mentioned, we are a smaller community, but we're kind of one degree of separation and from anybody that you need to meet. And so as much as I've outlined the sort of 5 formal areas of successful startup ecosystems, I like to believe that our secret sauce is coffee. I think we have that in common with Amsterdam. It's not just because we enjoy, our shot of caffeine in the morning, but it's because you can get a cup of coffee with anyone that you want or need to meet in this city. So take the advice of entrepreneurs, find one person who's a connector, and doors will be open for you to meet the rest of us. I think what you already saw with the 2 entrepreneurs here is this desire to give back. We have an incredible community of mentors, of organizations that accelerate the progress of startups. So I feel like there's a lot of work that we have to do, particularly around equity and inclusion, but we have so many of the ingredients for success. I'm clearly a big fan.
You're super bullish. You should become mayor of this town. This is great. Okay, so in light of the time, I think it's a lot of information. It's great information. I get excited about this as well. Final question for you, and then I want to just ask one more question also to Anisa, is what advice would you give to Dutch startups? Can they approach you? Can they approach Create33? Any short feedback on that?
Yes, please. Absolutely. And all it really takes, like I said, is to ask for that cup of coffee, even if it's a virtual one over Zoom, no matter when you connect. Reach out to, again, you've got such great ambassadors. Arean and Martijn have had an amazing experience. And I think once there might be a Seattle freeze, but once you have an in, I think that so many of us, Anisa as well, we would be more than delighted to make our network your network. That's why we're here. And, at least speaking for myself, that's what animates my involvement in the community. So yes, just pick a person to get that first meeting. Yeah.
Love it. Thanks, Rebecca. And we're together in the breakout room, so we can answer a few more questions. Anisa, then also a final question to you. From a city of Seattle's perspective, how interesting is it for Dutch startups actually to come to Seattle? So is there an appetite from the city's perspective to invite startups from outside of the US and actually set up shop in Seattle? And any perspectives on that?
Absolutely. I mean, it is definitely of interest to us because it also will impact our economic development, and there's an element of globalization there that supports what we're up to. But I will say, and I know I might sound like this is the thing that I'm going to keep bringing up, there is a lot of work though that we need to make sure that we do and we're addressing around diversity. So this is something that I think has been more easily stepped over, and given the nature of what's happening right now in the country and the conversations around race and race equity, we're recognizing that this is something that we need to focus on more than ever, and we need to ensure that those people who are engaging in the economic development of this city have that at the forefront of what they're up to. So, race equity is really big. Also, I know, having been in tech in the startup world for a while, making sure that women are empowered, LGBTQ+, to ensure that these groups are not being disregarded just so that we can, have our startups be successful and make money. So the biggest focus for us is to also make sure that inclusivity is included in all the efforts that are being made from startups and small businesses and the big industry. So we're all game if we can support you all in those efforts as well.
Okay, I think you will find some great companies from the Netherlands, but we will be in touch about that very soon. Thank you very much, Anisa. Thank you very much, Rebecca. I mean, you know a lot what's going on in the local ecosystem. I think it's very valuable information for startups that are thinking about this. Back to you, Sietse.
Thank you, Michael, and the other speakers. Well, I think the case for Seattle has been made. We know why we should start working with Seattle, and now I think it's time to start our breakout rooms and to dive into a discussion with each other in smaller groups. How can we connect the Netherlands and Seattle? For now, during COVID-19, of course, so everything has to be online, but also for the future. So you'll all be divided in 3 breakout rooms with a moderator from the consulate. And the question is simple. How can we strengthen the ties between the ecosystems in Seattle and the Netherlands? And after about 10 minutes, you'll all come back to this main room. And I would like to hear 2 or 3 tips, ideas, crazy thoughts that you have, and then hopefully we as the consulate can then can work with that and make a plan for the future. So Milan, if you can just zoom everybody to a breakout room. Thank you. All right, I think we're all back in the main room again. Let's see, everybody's there. Yeah, we're all back. Well, I hope you all had a chance to meet each other and to go a bit more into Seattle and the relation with the Netherlands. So let's just start with going through kind of the couple of topics that you guys discussed. Maybe I can start with the moderator of room number 1. Was that Walter or Walter?
It was the other Walter.
I don't know which room I was in.
I was 2.
But Walter, you start. All right.
Okay. Now we had a short, brief discussion with Leon Verlinde. He has a startup in the hospitality world, focusing on software, and he is starting out now on the East Coast, in New York and in DC, if I heard correctly. But he's certainly interested to going to the West Coast. So he asked what are the benefits, what are the attractions on the West Coast. And I was first thinking of San Francisco. Maybe I should be thinking of Seattle. And then I came across this webinar. And then Anisa, indeed, she gave the pluses for a move to, if you go to the West Coast, move immediately to Seattle. And why? Well, there's a lot of B2B. There's, of course, this cloud. The cloud is very strong in Seattle. It's also more focused. It's very diffuse in San Francisco. There's too much happening, too many people. There's more money, but on the other hand, there's also money in Seattle. And there's also more loyalty. That was a good point we talked about earlier. So there's a lot of talent available, also coming from the big corporates, coming out of the big corporates. But on the other hand, there's more loyalty because people will move less than they do in San Francisco. So a lot of pluses. So hopefully you were a bit convinced to consider also Seattle when you are thinking of the West Coast in a year's time, like you said.
And did you guys have any suggestions how to move forward with the relationship between Seattle and the Netherlands?
No, I think these were the points we discussed. It was very brief time, so we also had some input from Karen and Leo, who are, of course, very long time already in Seattle. But we can always, of course, Leo, you can always come back to us. You had like a lot of good people there from the Seattle area. So if you have any more questions, please do come back.
Reach out. I liked what Anisa brought up. Actually, you're a big fish in a small pond here. Yeah, rather than in Silicon Valley, you're a small fish in a big pond. Yeah. And the attention that will get you, I think that's probably something that could help. But I also understand you follow your client, you sort of follow your clients. Yeah. So given the time difference, 9 hours rather than 6 with New York, it may make sense to have support here in the West, on the West Coast, no matter what, whether it's Silicon Valley, whether it's here. Yeah. Because then you cover more. Yeah, it's a bigger difference, so it's easy to share a larger difference. Yeah. Make sense?
For sure. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Walter de Wit, what are your takeaways?
Yes, thank you, Sietse. A couple of takeaways. We did first a very brief and quick introductions of the people that we have not seen in the first two panel sessions. Altogether, we were with 4 Dutch entrepreneurs in Seattle, so that was quite a lot. One of the things that they are all more than willing to do is make connections for Dutch companies or even mentor Dutch companies that are interested in going to the Seattle area. So that is a very good outcome. One of the entrepreneurs mentioned that Seattle is like the Netherlands with mountains, and the transition into Seattle was very easy. One of the things that lacked, and that was the awareness. Not many people know, despite the Microsoft and the Boeings and the Amazon, don't know how to find Seattle. That is the bigger challenge. One of the speakers or one of the participants was from the city of Seattle, and what they are willing to do, of course, is to help any Dutch company that is interested in Seattle to make introductions or help them in whatever way they can. Creating awareness is still a challenge, was one of the outcomes as well. Sietse, I'll leave it at that for now. Or one of the other members might want to add something as well.
All right, thank you, Walter. Then room number 3, Michael.
Yes, hi, Sietse, thanks. Yeah, a great, well, the short but good session with Arean and with Rebecca, and Odette Bakker was also there from the city of Phoenix to learn. That was quite interesting. I think, you know, there are a lot of elements available in Seattle to make this successful, you know, supporting Dutch startups. That's clear to me. I think one of the ideas that we discussed as a group was, okay, maybe we can extend the online mentor community that we have in the Bay Area also to Seattle. I think that makes sense. There's plenty of talent available that really want to help, but also mentors like successful entrepreneurs like Arean that want to give back. And Rebecca has, I think, an amazing network with Create 33. So all the ingredients are available. I think it's a great tech hub. We should just make sure that we expand our own digital community towards Seattle. This is one. And secondly, let's think about an opportunity to do a virtual mission to Seattle focused on, you know, a specific vertical or, you know, cloud-based business, for example, and to leverage also the available tech companies that are there. I think two concrete ideas that we can work on for the next few weeks.
All right.
Back to you.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody for your ideas and participation. I will send you a link to the video, the Playbook video with sound, so you can look at you can look it up. I also just posted it on our LinkedIn page, Netherlands Consulate General. So maybe you can share and help us spread the word of the Silicon Valley Playbook. I would like to end with giving the word to the stage to Gerbert, the Consul General.
Oh, thank you very much, Sietse. Well, and thank you all for joining us today. It was a great virtual roundtable. It's indeed a different setting. And the breakout rooms will give us code. So I do hope that we can reach out to Dutch entrepreneurs like Leon and so many others that are considering to Seattle. Just because they don't so much about it, they will easily sort of forget about maybe setting up bigger. But you all know that Seattle is really a good alternative. I have to quote Anisa, I'm not sure whether I do it correctly, but she said, like, you know, in San Francisco, so busy, it feels like everyone and their mom is doing something. I really like that expression. Like, it's a lot of hype kind of thing sometimes here in the Valley. Well, you all said something special about Seattle. It's just a different kind of vibe, but the vibe is excellent. It is a perfect fit, I would say, for many Dutch going.
Herbert, your connection is unfortunately giving up, I guess. Let's see if he's coming back.
West Coast. I think I had so this will work in just a second once this is settled.
Maybe if you turn off your camera.
Am I back in business?
Maybe turn off your camera. Maybe that will help for now.
Okay. Like this? Am I still in your?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good. I can see you. You can hear me. Well, this is a Zoom friend again. I'm not sure what you sort of. I was there with the quote of Anisa. I think this one was well heard because of the moms in Silicon Valley are so active. Well, I like the moms in Seattle, of course, but I mean here it was more like to sketch the vibe of Silicon Valley, which is sometimes a bit of a hype in itself. While Seattle had this different vibe. I think an excellent vibe for Dutch entrepreneurs. With the secret sauce of coffee, like I said, and everybody wants to know what kind of coffee you drink, Rebecca, I noted. So, I mean, we'll hear that later. But thanks again for joining us. Thank you so much, Maaike, for setting up a third playbook for the consulate. I think, well, we are really pleased because we feel like this is the best way to reach out. It's just the best thing is to have the stories of entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs. That's what you told us. And I think this is really true. So I think with that, I want just to thank you all. We are looking forward to having a strategy to sort of better connecting the Seattle ecosystem to the Netherlands. I think we should dive as well into this collaboration between University of Washington State and Yes Delft. This was set up in June 2017. I think we might look into that. I'm looking to Walter de Wit as well to maybe explore a bit, because I think Yes Delft could also be a nice sort of starting point in the Netherlands to connect to the entrepreneurs in the Netherlands again. So thank you all. Looking forward to seeing you soon via Zoom, or if not, just even better in real life, whether it's the Netherlands or whether it's Seattle. So thanks to the team of the consulate for setting up this webinar, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.